Welcome to Sleepy History. Tonight, we're stepping into the dusty boots of a sheriff in the Wild West in Fort Worth, Texas, 1869. Picture a quiet Texas night, the soft creak of a wooden porch, a distant coyote's howl under a starlit sky. The year is 1869, a time when the frontier was still raw and wild, when cattle drives stretched endlessly across the plains, and Fort Worth was a bustling gateway to the great cattle trails north. In this dusty town, where wooden boardwalks echo with the gentle thud of boots, where oil lamps flicker in shop windows, and where the scent of sagebrush mingles with leather and hay, you are the sheriff, keeper of the peace, guardian of this small corner of the vast Texas frontier. Tonight, let's drift back in time together to experience the quiet rhythms of a sheriff's life. Feel the weight of a tin star on your chest, the familiar creak of leather boots, the gentle jingle of spurs. As we journey through these peaceful moments of frontier life, allow yourself to settle in, to breathe deeply, and to let the calming sounds and textures of 1869 wash over you. The moon hangs high above Fort Worth, casting silver shadows across the dusty Main Street. All is quiet, all is calm. Let's begin. The first light of dawn slips through a cracked window above the jail. Pale gold fingers of sunlight stretch across rough wooden planks. The air carries the scent of dust and leather, mixed with the faint aroma of coffee brewing somewhere down the street. You stir slowly, feeling the familiar ache in your back from the narrow cot. The mattress is stuffed with straw and horsehair, not soft, but it's been home for 3 years now. Your boots sit beside the bed, worn leather shaped by countless miles of walking Fort Worth's dusty streets. You reach for your tin coffee pot. It sits on a small wooden table beside the window. The metal is cool to the touch, slightly dented from years of use. It clinks gently as you lift it, checking for water from the night before. There's enough for 1 cup, maybe 2 if you're careful. The wooden floor creaks softly under your bare feet, each plank worn smooth by time and weather. You pad quietly to the small stove in the corner, its iron surface cold and dark. You open the firebox, the hinges groan softly. Inside, a few pieces of kindling remain from yesterday evening. You strike a match, the sudden flare bright in the dim room. The sulfur smells sharp and brief. You touch the flame to a piece of dry cedar. It catches quickly, crackling and popping as the fire takes hold. The warmth begins to spread, chasing away the cool morning air. As the fire grows, you add larger pieces of wood, mesquite mostly. It burns hot and clean. The flames dance behind the grate, casting moving shadows on the adobe walls. The room slowly fills with warmth and the comforting scent of burning wood. You set the coffee pot on the stovetop, the water inside beginning its slow journey toward a boil. While you wait, you move to the wash basin, a chipped ceramic bowl on a simple wooden stand. The water is cold, almost shocking against your face, but it clears the sleep from your eyes. Your reflection wavers in the small mirror above the basin. Weathered face, lines around the eyes from squinting into the Texas sun. A mustache that needs trimming. You run your fingers through your hair, trying to tame the unruly strands. The coffee pot begins to bubble, soft pops and gurgles. You add ground coffee beans, the rich aroma immediately filling the small room. You've learned to make it strong, frontier coffee that can wake the dead, though this morning you prefer it gentle, matching the quiet pace of dawn. While the coffee steeps, you dress slowly, pulling on long underwear still slightly damp from washing. The cotton feels rough against your skin. Your shirt is blue flannel, soft from many washings, missing a button near the collar. You thread your arms through the sleeves, feeling the familiar weight of the fabric. Your trousers are dark wool, sturdy and practical, held up by worn leather suspenders. You fasten each button carefully, the morning routine as familiar as breathing. Your vest comes next, brown leather with brass buttons. Pockets holding your pocket watch, a few coins, and a small notebook for daily observations. The badge, your most important accessory, sits on the table beside your hat. The tin star catches what little light filters through the window, slightly tarnished but clean. You pin it carefully to your vest, feeling its familiar weight over your heart. Sheriff, a title that still carries meaning in Fort Worth, still commands respect. Your boots wait patiently, old friends shaped by miles of walking. The leather is cracked but sturdy, polished as best you can manage. You pull them on slowly, feeling your feet settle into the familiar contours. The leather creaks softly, a sound you've grown to love. Your gun belt hangs on a peg beside the door, heavy leather worn smooth by your hands. The holster carries a Colt Navy revolver, its grip worn but reliable. You strap it around your waist, adjusting the weight until it sits comfortably. The belt holds extra cartridges, though you rarely have cause to use them. Your hat, a wide-brimmed affair that's seen better days, provides essential shade in the Texas sun. You settle it on your head, feeling the familiar pressure, the brim casting shadows that protect your eyes. It's not pretty, but it's practical, like everything else in your life. The coffee has finished brewing. You pour it into a tin cup, the liquid dark and steaming. The first sip is bitter, strong enough to wake every nerve, but warming, comforting. You drink it slowly, savoring the heat as it spreads through your chest. Outside, Fort Worth is beginning to stir. You can hear the distant lowing of cattle, the creak of wagon wheels, the soft murmur of voices as the town awakens. But here in your small room above the jail, all is still peaceful, quiet. The morning ritual complete, you're ready to face another day. You finish your coffee, rinse the cup in the wash basin, and set it aside to dry. The fire in the stove burns low, providing just enough warmth. Everything in its place, everything ready. Time to begin your patrol of Fort Worth, to see what this day in 1869 might bring. You step onto the small wooden landing outside your door. The morning air is cool and dry, carrying the scent of dust and distant cattle. Your boots thud softly on the wooden steps leading down to the street level, each step creaking slightly under your weight. The main street of Fort Worth stretches before you, a wide dirt road bordered by wooden boardwalks. Already the dust is being stirred by early morning activity, a fine haze hanging in the air, caught in the slanted rays of sunrise. Your first stop is always the jail itself, checking the lock on the main door, feeling the metal mechanism turn smoothly in your fingers. The hinges groan softly as you push the door open, stepping into the cool dimness inside. The jail consists of 3 cells, iron bars black with age but solid as bedrock. This morning they're empty, though the scent of previous occupants lingers, tobacco smoke, unwashed bodies, the metallic tang of fear and resignation. You check each lock methodically, running your fingers along the bars, ensuring everything is secure. On your desk sits a logbook, its pages yellowed with age, filled with your careful handwriting documenting the daily life of Fort Worth. Arrests, fines, complaints, the mundane details that keep a frontier town running smoothly. You make a quick entry. June 15, 1869. Dawn patrol beginning. All secure. Back outside, the sun has climbed higher, painting the dusty street in shades of gold and amber. You begin your walk down Main Street, your spurs jingling softly with each step, a gentle rhythm that marks your passage. The first business to catch your attention is Henderson's General Store, its wooden sign creaking gently in the morning breeze. Through the window you can see lamps burning, casting warm yellow light across shelves lined with goods, flour barrels, bolts of cloth, tools and hardware. You push open the door, a brass bell jingling to announce your arrival. The scent inside is complex: leather and metal, coffee and spices, the sweet smell of penny candy in glass jars. Samuel Henderson looks up from arranging merchandise, his face creasing into a familiar smile. "Morning, Sheriff. Quiet night, I hope." His voice carries the gentle drawl of East Texas, where he was born and raised before the war. You nod and exchange pleasantries, asking about his wife's garden, the shipment of goods expected from Dallas, the small conversations that bind a community together. The wooden floors creak pleasantly under your feet as you examine his wares, running your fingers along the smooth handles of hammers and axes, feeling the fine weave of cotton fabric, inhaling the rich aroma of ground coffee beans in wooden barrels. Outside once more, you continue your patrol, pausing to examine a hitching post where the rope has begun to fray. The hemp fibers are rough against your fingers, worn by countless horses tugging against their bonds. You make a mental note to mention it to the town council. The blacksmith's shop is already active, even in the early morning. The forge glows bright orange, casting dancing shadows on the walls. You can hear the rhythmic ring of hammer on anvil, a sound that defines frontier life. Thomas Murphy waves from inside, sweat already beading on his forehead despite the cool air. You step into the shop, feeling the heat from the forge wash over you. The air shimmers with warmth, filled with the scent of hot metal and coal smoke. Thomas is working on horseshoes, the metal glowing cherry red, sparks flying with each hammer blow. "Sheriff." He nods between strikes, his voice slightly breathless from exertion. "Heard there might be cattle drives coming through this week." You discuss the preparations needed, extra feed for horses, repairs to the corrals, the logistics of handling hundreds of cattle and dozens of cowboys. The rhythmic hammering resumes as you leave, the sound following you down the street, mixing with the gentle creak of wooden signs, the distant lowing of cattle, the soft whisper of wind through the buildings. Your boots find their rhythm on the boardwalk, thud, creak, thud, creak. The wooden planks are weathered gray, worn smooth by countless feet. Some boards sag slightly, giving under your weight with gentle groans. Others are solid as stone, speaking to the quality of their construction. Past the barber shop, where Henry Wilkins is already stropping his razor, the blade singing against the leather, preparing for the day's first customers. Past the livery stable, where horses stamp and snort in their stalls, the scent of hay and manure strong but not unpleasant, mixing with the smell of leather and oiled wood. You pause beside a water trough, its wooden sides dark with age and moisture. A few horses drink lazily, their lips barely disturbing the surface. The water is clear and cool, reflecting the brightening sky. You cup your hands and take a drink yourself, the water sweet and refreshing. A dog trots past, a brown and white mutt that belongs to everyone and no one. Its tail wags in recognition. You reach down to scratch behind its ears, feeling the soft fur, warm from the sun. It leans into your touch for a moment before continuing on its own mysterious errands. The morning patrol continues, a gentle routine that brings you into contact with the pulse of the town, checking windows and doors, nodding to early risers, observing the subtle changes that mark each new day. The sun climbs steadily higher, promising another warm Texas day, but for now, the air remains cool and pleasant. Your circuit takes you past the schoolhouse, a small wooden building painted white, though the paint is beginning to peel, revealing gray wood beneath. The school bell hangs silent, waiting for children who won't arrive for several hours yet. Through the windows you can see slate boards, wooden desks carved with the initials of countless students. Behind the school, a small cemetery holds the town's departed, wooden crosses and simple stone markers standing silent vigil. You remove your hat briefly, a gesture of respect for those who built this place, who struggled and died to create something lasting in the wilderness. The patrol brings you full circle, back to the jail where you began. The sun now fully risen, casting sharp shadows, driving away the last coolness of dawn. Fort Worth is fully awake now, ready for another day. And you, its protector and servant, are ready too. The sun reaches its zenith, blazing down on Fort Worth with the full intensity of a Texas summer. The air shimmers with heat, and even in the shade of the jail's wooden overhang, you can feel sweat beginning to form beneath your hat. Inside the jail, the air is cooler but still warm. The thick adobe walls help, but nothing can completely escape the Texas heat. You light an oil lamp despite the daylight streaming through the windows, its warm glow pushing back the shadows in the corners of the room. Your desk awaits, stacked with the paperwork that seems to multiply like rabbits. Incident reports from the weekend, notices from the county seat, correspondence from other law enforcement officers across the state. Each document requires careful attention, your pen scratching across paper as you record the mundane details of frontier justice. The ink flows dark blue across the pages, sometimes blotting when you pause too long, thinking through the proper wording. Your handwriting is careful and deliberate, each letter formed with the precision of a man who understands that words have weight, that records matter, that someone, someday, might need to know exactly what happened in Fort Worth on this day in 1869. A knock at the door interrupts your writing. You look up to see Martha Stevens, wife of the town's doctor, her face flushed from the heat and something else, concern, worry. She steps inside, her skirts rustling against the doorframe. "Sheriff, I hate to bother you, but there's been some trouble at the Mercantile." Her voice carries the refined accent of someone educated back east, before the war changed everything. brought so many people west in search of new beginnings. You set down your pen carefully, wiping the nib clean on a small cloth. The complaint is minor, a dispute over the quality of fabric, accusations of cheating, the kind of disagreement that can fester in a small town if not handled properly. You listen carefully, asking gentle questions, your voice calm and reassuring. After taking notes and promising to investigate, Mrs. Stevens departs, leaving behind the faint scent of lavender water. You return to your paperwork, but the interruption has broken your concentration. Outside, you can hear the sounds of midday Fort Worth, voices calling to each other, the creak of wagon wheels, the distant bawling of cattle. Your lunch sits waiting on a shelf beside your desk, bread and cheese wrapped in a clean cloth, an apple from the tree behind the boarding house, simple fare but filling. You eat slowly, savoring each bite, washing it down with water from a clay jug that keeps the liquid surprisingly cool. The cheese is sharp and crumbly, made by Mrs. Peterson, who keeps goats behind her house. The bread is dense and dark, baked with flour ground at the mill upstream. Each bite connects you to the web of relationships that keeps Fort Worth functioning, the quiet cooperation that makes civilization possible even here on the edge of nowhere. As you eat, you review the morning's observations, the frayed rope at the hitching post, the conversation about incoming cattle drives, the complaint about the mercantile. Each detail is important, part of the larger picture of keeping the peace in a growing frontier town. After lunch, you turn your attention to cleaning and maintenance, tasks that keep the jail functioning properly. The oil lamps need fresh wicks, their glass chimneys cleaned of soot and grime. You work carefully, your fingers gentle with the delicate glass, knowing that replacement parts are weeks away by wagon. The lamp oil has a distinctive smell, clean and sharp, not unpleasant but distinctive. You trim the wicks to the proper length, ensuring they'll burn evenly without smoking. Each lamp is tested, the flame adjusted until it burns steady and bright. Your revolver requires daily attention, though you rarely draw it, let alone fire it. You unload it carefully, checking each cartridge, running your fingers along the barrel to ensure it's clean. The metal is warm from your body heat, familiar and reassuring in your hands. The cleaning kit sits in a wooden box on your desk, oil and patches, a ramrod for cleaning the barrel. You work methodically, the routine soothing and meditative. The gun oil has a sweet, metallic scent, and the patches come away clean, evidence of your careful maintenance. As you work, your mind wanders to the early days of your tenure as sheriff. When Fort Worth was even smaller, more lawless. When your gun was drawn more often. When the weight of the badge felt heavier. Those days seem distant now, though only 3 years have passed. The afternoon heat builds steadily, making the jail feel like an oven despite the thick walls. You prop open the door, hoping for a breeze, but the air outside is still and heavy. A fly buzzes lazily near the window, its drone mixing with the distant sounds of the town. You return to your paperwork, working steadily through the stack, recording fines collected, noting repairs needed around town, writing a letter to the county sheriff about coordinating responses to cattle drive season. The pen grows warm in your fingers, and occasionally you pause to wipe sweat from your brow. A telegram arrives from Dallas, brought by young Billy Morrison, who works at the telegraph office. The yellow paper crackles in your hands as you read about wanted men possibly heading this direction. You file it carefully with other law enforcement notices, just another piece of the puzzle that is keeping the peace. The sun beats down relentlessly, turning the street outside into a furnace. But inside the jail, despite the heat, there's a sense of purpose, of order maintained in small but important ways. The paperwork complete, the equipment clean and ready, the daily routines that keep Fort Worth safe and functioning. As the afternoon wears on, you prepare for the next phase of your day, checking the locks one more time, ensuring everything is secure. The heat will break eventually, evening will come, and with it new challenges and quiet satisfactions of frontier law enforcement. The heat of midday begins to ease slightly as you step back onto the boardwalk, though the sun still beats down mercilessly on the dusty street. Your shadow has shortened to a small pool at your feet, and the wooden planks radiate warmth through the soles of your boots. Your first stop is the livery stable, where James Crawford tends to the horses of visitors and townspeople alike. The barn is dim and surprisingly cool, thick wooden beams supporting a roof that blocks the worst of the sun. The air is filled with the gentle sounds of horses, soft nickering, the rustle of hay, the occasional stamp of hooves on packed earth. Afternoon, Sheriff Crawford calls from a stall where he's brushing down a bay mare. The horse's coat gleams in the filtered sunlight streaming through cracks in the barn walls. You approach slowly, letting the animal catch your scent, extending your hand for her to sniff. The mare's breath is warm and sweet against your palm. Her nose is velvet soft, whiskers tickling your skin. She accepts your presence calmly, a sign that Crawford has trained her well. "Beautiful animal," you comment, running your hand along her neck, feeling the powerful muscles beneath the smooth coat. Crawford nods with pride. His hands work the brush in long, steady strokes, each pass removing dust and loose hair. The rhythm is hypnotic, soothing. The mare stands patiently, eyes half closed in contentment. She belongs to that cattle buyer from Dallas, should be staying a few more days. You discuss the upcoming cattle drives, the need for extra feed and space, the logistics of handling dozens of horses and riders passing through town. Crawford is prepared, his barn clean and well organized, his supplies adequate. But it never hurts to check, to ensure everything runs smoothly. Leaving the stable, you emerge back into the blazing afternoon sun. The heat hits you like a physical force, and you automatically adjust your hat to provide better shade. The street is quieter now, most sensible people taking shelter during the hottest part of the day. Your next destination is the barber shop, where Henry Wilkins has just finished with a customer. The man emerges looking considerably more civilized, hair trimmed and face clean-shaven. He nods respectfully as he passes, recognizing your badge even through the heat haze. Inside the barber shop, the air is thick with the scents of bay rum and shaving soap. Hair tonic and talcum powder. The chairs are worn leather, cracked but comfortable. Mirrors reflect and multiply the light from the windows, creating a sense of space in the small room. Sheriff Wilkins greets you, wiping his hands on a clean towel. "Hot enough for you today?" His attempt at humor draws a smile, though both of you are feeling the oppressive heat. You settle into one of the chairs, not for a shave but for conversation, information, the pulse of the town as seen from a barber's perspective. Wilkins knows everyone's business, hears all the gossip, sees the subtle changes in mood and circumstance that can affect the peace of Fort Worth. Today he mentions concerns about water, the creek running lower than usual, some tension between cattlemen and farmers over grazing rights. You file away these observations, mental notes that might become important later. In a small town, the sheriff's job is as much about preventing problems as solving them. Understanding the currents of discontent before they become rapids. A commotion outside draws your attention, voices raised in argument. You excuse yourself and step back into the blazing street, where two men are engaged in a heated discussion beside a loaded wagon. The argument is over a transaction, the quality of goods delivered versus what was promised. Both men are red-faced from heat and anger, their voices carrying clearly in the still air. You approach calmly, your presence immediately noticed, the argument losing some of its intensity. "Gentlemen," you say quietly, your voice carrying authority without aggression. "Perhaps we can discuss this in the shade." You guide them toward the overhang in front of the general store, where the temperature is at least marginally cooler. The dispute is typical of frontier commerce, misunderstandings over quality, delays in delivery, expectations not met. You listen to both sides, asking questions, seeking the truth beneath the accusations. Your notebook comes out, recording details, creating a paper trail. The solution, when it comes, is simple and fair. A partial refund, an agreement on future transactions, handshakes all around. The men part ways, their anger cooled by reason and the authority of the badge. Another small crisis averted, peace maintained. These interactions are the heart of your job, not the dramatic confrontations of dime novels, but the patient work of mediation, of finding common ground, of keeping neighbors from becoming enemies. It's unglamorous work, but essential. The afternoon heat continues to build, making every task more difficult. Sweat beads under your hat brim, trickles down your back beneath the heavy fabric of your shirt. Even in the shade, the air shimmers with warmth rising from the street. You make your way to the hotel, where the proprietor, Mrs. Angela Rodriguez, maintains one of the few cool spots in town. Her building has thick adobe walls and high ceilings, designed for this climate, offering blessed relief from the heat. Inside, the lobby is dim and cool, almost cold after the blazing street. Your eyes take a moment to adjust, and you pause to appreciate the difference. Mrs. Rodriguez appears from behind the front desk, her dress crisp despite the heat, her manner professional but welcoming. "Sheriff, what brings you by this afternoon?" Her accent carries traces of her Mexican heritage, musical and warm. She offers you water, cool from a clay olla that keeps it surprisingly refreshing. You drink gratefully, feeling the coolness spread through your chest. The conversation turns to guests, recent arrivals, potential problems. A cattle buyer from Kansas, quiet and well-behaved. A traveling preacher heading west, enthusiastic but harmless. A family of settlers bound for California, tired and worried about the road ahead. Each guest represents potential complications, but also opportunities. The cattle buyer might bring business. The preacher might bring comfort to the community. The settlers might decide to stay, adding to Fort Worth's growing population. As you prepare to leave the blessed coolness of the hotel, Mrs. Rodriguez mentions strange riders seen to the south, not threatening, but unfamiliar. Worth investigating when the heat breaks. You make another mental note, add it to the list of things requiring attention. Back into the furnace of the afternoon, the heat hitting you like a wall. You adjust your hat again, check your watch. Still hours before the sun begins its descent, but evening will come eventually, bringing relief and new responsibilities. The afternoon patrol continues, checking on businesses, talking with citizens, observing, listening, maintaining the delicate balance that keeps Fort Worth peaceful and prosperous. The heat makes everything more difficult, but the work continues, the badge demands no less. As the sun begins its slow descent toward the western horizon, the oppressive heat of midday finally starts to ease. The light takes on a different quality, softer, more golden, casting longer shadows that provide precious relief from the blazing Texas sun. You settle into the wooden chair on the jail's front porch, a ritual that marks the transition from day to evening. The chair is simple but comfortable, worn smooth by evening after evening of use. Its arms are scarred by years of service, small nicks and dents that tell the story of countless quiet hours. The view from your porch encompasses most of Fort Worth's Main Street, allowing you to observe the evening rhythms of the town. People emerge from buildings where they've sheltered during the worst heat, moving more freely now. Their faces less strained, their steps less hurried. You remove your hat, setting it carefully on the porch railing beside you. The evening breeze, weak but present, stirs your hair, cooling the sweat that has accumulated throughout the long, hot day. It's a small pleasure, but significant after hours under the merciless sun. From your chair, you can see the hotel where Mrs. Rodriguez has lit the lamps in the lobby, their warm glow spilling through the windows onto the dusty street. The saloon down the block shows similar signs of life, though the music hasn't started yet. That will come later, when full darkness falls. A group of children plays in the street nearby, their game involving a leather ball and considerable running. Their voices carry clearly in the still air, laughter and excited shouts, the universal sounds of childhood that are the same whether in Boston or Fort Worth. Their energy seems inexhaustible despite the heat. You watch them play, remembering your own childhood, though that seems a lifetime ago, before the war, before you pinned on a badge, before you learned that keeping the peace requires constant vigilance, even in a place as small and seemingly peaceful as Fort Worth. The sun continues its descent, painting the western sky in shades of orange and pink. The horizon shimmers with heat haze, but the colors are beautiful, a daily reminder that even in the harsh frontier, there is beauty for those who take time to notice. A wagon approaches from the east, dust rising from its wheels in a lazy cloud. The driver is bent forward, clearly tired from a long day's travel. His horses move slowly, heads hanging, their flanks dark with sweat. You rise from your chair, walking to the edge of the porch to get a better look. The wagon belongs to Farmer Peterson, returning from a trip to Dallas with supplies for his family and his small store. He raises a weary hand in greeting, and you wave back, noting that he seems well, his load intact, another small piece of Fort Worth's economy functioning as it should. As Peterson's wagon disappears around the corner toward his farm, you return to your chair, settling back into the worn wood with a soft sigh. The routine of these evening watches has become precious to you. A time for observation, for thought, for the quiet satisfaction of a town at peace. The smell of cooking begins to drift from various buildings, beef and beans, cornbread baking, coffee brewing for the evening meal. Your own stomach reminds you that it's been several hours since your simple lunch, but there's no urgency. The evening meal can wait until your watch is complete. A horse and rider approach from the south, moving at an easy canter, dust rising in small puffs from each hoofbeat. As they draw closer, you recognize Sarah Mitchell, daughter of the town's doctor, returning from a visit to a farm family outside town. She rides well, sitting her horse with confidence born of years in the saddle. She slows as she passes the jail, raising her hand in greeting. Her face is flushed from sun and wind, but she appears well and untroubled. "Evening, Sheriff," she calls, her voice carrying easily in the still air. You touch the brim of your hat in response, watching as she continues toward the small house behind the doctor's office. The light continues to change, growing richer, more golden. The harsh edges of midday begin to soften, and Fort Worth takes on a different character, more welcoming, more human in scale. The buildings seem less stark, the street less forbidding. From the direction of the church comes the sound of singing, evening practice for Sunday's service. The voices blend in harmony, carrying fragments of familiar hymns across the cooling air. The sound is peaceful, comforting, a reminder of the civilization that exists even here on the frontier. A dog trots past, the same brown and white mutt you encountered during your morning patrol. It pauses to look at you, tail wagging slightly, then continues on its mysterious errands. Animals, you've noticed, have their own routines, their own territories to patrol, their own version of keeping the peace. The evening progresses slowly, peacefully. The harsh urgency of the heat-filled afternoon gives way to a more contemplative pace. You find yourself thinking about the small events of the day, the morning interactions, the afternoon disputes, the gradual accumulation of details that make up a sheriff's life. In the distance, barely audible, you can hear cattle lowing, a reminder that Fort Worth's prosperity depends on the great herds that pass through on their way north to Kansas railheads. Tomorrow might bring new drives, new cowboys, new challenges. But for now, all is quiet. As the sun sinks lower, the first bats begin to appear, dark silhouettes against the deepening sky. They dive and wheel in pursuit of insects, their flight patterns erratic but purposeful. Another sign that the day is ending, that night is approaching. You check your pocket watch, a gift from your father before he died, its face worn but still keeping accurate time. The evening watch is nearly complete. Soon it will be time for the final patrol, the last check of locks and doors before Fort Worth settles into sleep. But for now, you remain in your chair, hat beside you on the railing, watching over your town as it transitions from day to night. A peaceful sentinel in a peaceful place, the badge on your chest catching the last rays of sunlight. The evening watch continues. Full darkness settles over Fort Worth like a gentle blanket. The last traces of sunset fade from the western sky, replaced by the first tentative appearance of stars, pinpricks of light in the vast Texas heavens. The temperature has finally dropped to something approaching comfortable. though the wooden boardwalks still radiate the day's accumulated heat. You rise from your chair with a soft grunt, muscles stiff from the long day, and reach for your hat, settling it back on your head with familiar ease. The evening watch is complete. Now begins the final responsibility of your day, the night patrol that ensures Fort Worth sleeps safely. Your boots thud softly on the wooden steps as you descend from the porch, each board creaking under your weight in the stillness. The street is empty now, most citizens safely inside their homes, preparing for sleep or already lost in dreams. Only the saloon shows significant signs of life, warm light spilling from its windows, the sound of piano music drifting across the dusty street. You begin your patrol at the far end of Main Street, where the buildings give way to open prairie. The transition is abrupt. One moment you're walking on wooden planks, the next your boots sink slightly into sandy soil mixed with dust and dried grass. The scent changes too, from the human smells of town to the clean, wild fragrance of the Texas plains. The night air carries sounds differently than day. The piano from the saloon seems both closer and more distant, mixing with the gentle whisper of wind through buildings, the creak of wooden signs swaying on their chains, the distant cry of a coyote somewhere out in the darkness. Your first stop is Henderson's General Store. You try the door handle gently, feeling the mechanism turn easily in your grip. The door is locked, as it should be. You peer through the windows, checking for anything unusual, but all appears normal, merchandise neat on its shelves, no signs of disturbance. Moving methodically down the street, you check each business in turn. The barber shop, door secured, chairs visible in neat rows through the window. The hotel, main entrance locked, though you can see light in Mrs. Rodriguez's private quarters above. The livery stable, barn doors secured with a heavy wooden bar. At each stop, you pause, listening, observing, using all your senses to detect anything out of place. The night patrol is less about dramatic interventions and more about this patient vigilance, the quiet assurance that Fort Worth sleeps under protection. The saloon deserves closer attention, not because you expect trouble, but because it's the only business still operating. You push through the batwing doors, stepping into warmth and noise and the complex mixture of scents that define such places: tobacco smoke, spilled beer, leather and horses and working men. The piano player, a thin man with quick fingers and a battered hat, nods in your direction without missing a note. His music is simple but skillful, melodies that everyone knows, songs that invite singing along. Though tonight the crowd is quiet, contemplative, men ending their day with drink and companionship. You count perhaps a dozen patrons, mostly local men you recognize, a few strangers who might be passing through. All appear peaceful, nursing their drinks, engaged in quiet conversation. No signs of the trouble that sometimes erupts when men mix alcohol with frustration or grief or the simple wildness that frontier life can breed. The bartender, a sturdy man named Murphy with arms like tree trunks, polishes glasses with practiced efficiency. His movements are rhythmic, soothing, the cloth squeaking softly against the glass. He nods respectfully as you approach, his face creased with years of dealing with every kind of man the frontier produces. "Evening, Sheriff." His voice carries the weight of experience, the quiet confidence of someone who's seen it all. "All quiet tonight. Just the usual folks winding down. You exchange pleasantries, your voice low, blending with the ambient sounds of the saloon, the clink of glasses, the soft murmur of conversation, the gentle melody from the piano. A man in the corner catches your attention, not because he's causing trouble, but because you don't recognize him. His clothes mark him as a traveler, dust-covered and worn from the road. His hat sits low over his eyes, but his posture is relaxed, unthreatening. Just another soul passing through Fort Worth on his way to somewhere else. You make a mental note, another face to remember, another piece of information filed away. The stranger meets your gaze briefly, raises his glass in a subtle salute, then returns to his drink. No words necessary, the communication complete. He understands you're watching, you understand he means no harm. The warmth inside the saloon feels good after the cooling night air, but you don't linger. The patrol must continue, the night's work isn't finished. You touch the brim of your hat to Murphy, nod to the room in general, and push back through the batwing doors into the darkness. The contrast is sharp, from warmth and light to cool darkness, from human voices to the night sounds of Fort Worth. Your eyes adjust quickly, years of night patrols have trained them well. The street appears empty, peaceful, exactly as it should be at this hour. Your boots resume their steady rhythm on the wooden boardwalk, each step deliberate, measured. The sound echoes slightly off the buildings, a lonely but reassuring cadence that speaks of order, of vigilance maintained. Your spurs add their gentle music, a soft jingling that accompanies each footfall. The next stretch of buildings stands dark and quiet, shutters closed, doors secured. The hardware store's window reflects starlight, displaying hammers and nails and all the tools needed to build civilization in the wilderness. Even in darkness, you can smell the scent of new metal, oiled wood, the raw materials of progress. You pause at the corner where Main Street intersects with the smaller road leading to the residential areas. Here, Fort Worth spreads out into individual homes, small plots where families make their lives, raise their children, build their dreams on the Texas frontier. The transition is marked by a change in the air, less commercial, more domestic. A dog barks somewhere in the distance, a brief sound quickly hushed, probably by its owner who knows the importance of quiet in the night hours. The sound fades, leaving only the whisper of wind through the buildings, the creak of wooden signs, the subtle settling sounds of a town at rest. Your hand rests naturally on your gun belt, not from nervousness or expectation of trouble, but from habit. The leather is warm from your body, familiar as an old friend. The weight of the revolver provides comfort, not because you expect to use it, but because it represents authority, the ability to protect if protection is needed. The church stands at the end of the street, its simple wooden steeple pointing toward the star-filled sky. Even in darkness, it radiates peace, stability, a reminder that Fort Worth is more than just a rough frontier town. It's a community, a place where people come together, where civilization takes root in the wilderness. You circle back toward the jail, taking a different route, checking the alleyways between buildings, looking for anything unusual. A cat darts across your path, a gray shadow in the darkness, probably hunting mice in the grain stored behind the mercantile. Nature continues its ancient patterns, even here in this human settlement. Behind the buildings, you can hear the gentle sound of the creek that provides Fort Worth with fresh water. The stream murmurs constantly, a soothing backdrop to the town's life. In daylight, you can see it running clear and clean, catching sunlight on its surface. At night, it's only a sound, peaceful and eternal. The air carries different scents as you walk, dust and horses from the street, wood smoke from dying fires, the green smell of grass and trees near the creek. Each area of town has its own character, its own particular mixture of human activity and natural world, all blending together in the complex tapestry of frontier life. A light glows in the doctor's window, probably Samuel Mitchell working late, reading medical journals or preparing medicines. The dedication of professional men like the doctor helps make Fort Worth more than just another rough cattle town. It's becoming a real community, a place where people can build lasting lives. You complete your circuit, arriving back at the jail as the church bell in the distance chimes the hour. 10 o'clock, late enough that most citizens are safely home, early enough that the saloon is still open for those who need the companionship that comes with shared drinks and conversation. The wooden steps creak under your weight as you climb back to the porch. The chair where you sat earlier waits patiently, its familiar contours welcoming after the walking patrol. You settle into it with a soft sigh, feeling the day's accumulated tension begin to ease from your shoulders. From this vantage point, you can observe most of Fort Worth, watching for anything unusual, listening for sounds that don't belong. But mostly, you sit in comfortable solitude, part of the night, part of the peaceful rhythm of a town settling into sleep. The stars seem brighter now, with fewer lights competing for attention. The Milky Way stretches across the vast Texas sky, a river of light that makes you feel both small and significant. Small because the universe is so immense, significant because you have a role to play in keeping this small corner of it peaceful and safe. A cool breeze stirs the dust in the street, carrying with it the scent of the prairie beyond Fort Worth's boundaries. That wilderness stretches for hundreds of miles, but here, in this small oasis of civilization, order prevails, peace is maintained. People can sleep safely because someone watches through the night. Your pocket watch ticks steadily, marking the passage of time, each second bringing Fort Worth closer to dawn, to another day, to the continuation of the quiet rhythms that define frontier life. The sound is comforting, a reminder that time moves forward, that tomorrow will bring new challenges and new small victories. The night patrol is nearly complete, but not quite finished. One more walk through the streets, one final check of doors and windows, then you can rest, knowing that you've done your duty, that Fort Worth sleeps under your protection. You rise from the chair, joints slightly stiff from sitting, and prepare for the final circuit. The night air feels cooler now, autumn making its presence known even in Texas. Soon, the cattle drives will slow, winter will bring a different pace to Fort Worth. But tonight, in the gentle warmth of late summer, all is peaceful, all is well. The final patrol begins with a walk past the bank, its sturdy door secured with multiple locks. The building represents prosperity, the accumulation of wealth that comes from successful commerce. Hard-earned money from cattle sales, grain harvests, the countless small transactions that keep a frontier economy functioning. Next to the bank sits the telegraph office, closed now but representing Fort Worth's connection to the wider world. Messages flow through this small building, connecting the town to Dallas, to Kansas City, to the great cities of the East. Technology bridging the vast distances of the American continent. The assay office stands dark and quiet, its scales and chemicals waiting for morning, when prospectors and miners might bring samples of rock, hoping to find traces of precious metals. The dream of sudden wealth draws men west, though most find their fortunes in more mundane ways, through hard work and persistence. Your boots find their rhythm on the boardwalk, the sound now familiar, comforting. Each step covers ground you've walked countless times, but vigilance never becomes routine. Each patrol is unique. Each night brings its own subtle variations, its own small discoveries. A horse shifts in the livery stable, probably dreaming horse dreams, of green pastures and flowing streams. The sound is barely audible, just a soft shuffling, but in the quiet night, every sound registers, becomes part of the complex symphony of Fort Worth after dark. The moonlight casts everything in silver and shadow, transforming the familiar daytime town into something mysterious, magical. The harsh edges of noon become soft curves. The dusty street becomes a river of light. The night reveals different truths, different beauties than the day. You pause at the edge of town, where the buildings give way to open prairie. The darkness stretches endlessly, filled with unknown dangers but also with promise. This is the frontier, where civilization meets wilderness, where order confronts chaos, where men like you stand guard at the boundary. A coyote calls in the distance, its voice rising and falling in an ancient song. The sound doesn't threaten, it simply acknowledges the night, the vast spaces beyond human settlement, the wild heart that still beats beneath the surface of even the most civilized places. Turning back toward town, you continue the patrol, checking each business, each potential problem area. Your eyes have fully adjusted to the darkness now, picking out details that would be invisible to someone coming directly from bright light. The night has its own visibility, its own way of revealing what needs to be seen. The general store displays its goods in the window, flour barrels and bolts of cloth dimly visible in the starlight. These simple items represent so much, the basic necessities that allow people to make lives in this remote place, food and clothing and tools, the fundamental requirements of human existence. Behind the store, you can hear the gentle sound of chickens settling for the night, soft clucking as they arrange themselves on their roosts. Even the animals follow daily rhythms, finding safety and comfort in routine, in the predictable cycle of day and night. A light still burns in the newspaper office, where the editor works late, preparing the next edition. The press sits silent now, but tomorrow it will print the news that keeps Fort Worth connected to itself: births and deaths, business announcements, the small but important events that bind a community together. The school stands empty, its windows dark, but you can almost hear the echo of children's voices, the daily recitation of lessons, the patient work of education that prepares the next generation for life on the frontier. Knowledge and learning taking root in the wilderness, civilization building itself one child at a time. As you walk, your mind wanders to the families sleeping behind these dark windows. Parents and children, dreamers and workers, all trusting that the night will pass peacefully, that morning will find them safe, that someone watches over their town while they rest. This trust is both a privilege and a responsibility. The badge on your chest isn't just metal, it's a promise, a commitment to the people of Fort Worth that their sheriff will stand between them and whatever dangers the night might bring. Tonight, as most nights, that danger is minimal, but the vigilance remains constant. The final stretch of the patrol takes you past the hotel, where a few windows still glow with lamplight. Travelers settling in for the night, perhaps writing letters home, or simply sitting by their windows, looking out at this small Texas town and wondering about their next destination. Each lighted window tells a story, represents a life in motion, people with their own hopes and fears, their own reasons for being in Fort Worth. Some will stay, adding to the town's growing population. Others will move on, carrying memories of this place to wherever their journeys take them. You complete the circuit, arriving once again at the jail. The night patrol finished, your duty discharged for another evening. Fort Worth sleeps peacefully, guarded by your vigilance, protected by your presence. The simple satisfaction of work well done settles over you like a warm blanket. The wooden steps welcome you back, each creak familiar and comforting. Inside the jail, the oil lamp burns low, casting dancing shadows on the adobe walls. Your desk waits, papers neatly arranged, everything in its proper place, ready for whatever tomorrow might bring. You remove your hat, setting it carefully on the desk. Your hair feels cool where the sweat has evaporated. The day's heat now just a memory, replaced by the gentle coolness of night. Texas evenings can be kind, offering relief from the harsh sun, providing space for rest and reflection. Your gun belt comes next, the leather soft and familiar in your hands. You hang it on its peg, the weight of responsibility temporarily set aside. The revolver hasn't been drawn today, hasn't been needed. Most days are like this, peaceful, routine, exactly as they should be. You light a fresh wick in the lamp, adjusting the flame until it burns steady and bright. The warm light pushes back the darkness, creates a small circle of comfort in the larger night. Here, in this simple room, you can rest, knowing that Fort Worth is secure. Before settling for the night, you make one final entry in the daily log, recording the evening's observations, the patrol completed without incident, the town quiet and peaceful. These records might seem mundane, but they tell the story of Fort Worth's growth, its journey from rough frontier outpost to stable community. Your pen scratches across the paper, the sound somehow satisfying, each word a small act of order, of documentation, of care for the details that make civilization possible. The ink flows dark and steady, creating a permanent record of this night in 1869. The entry complete, you set the pen aside, wiping the nib clean on a small cloth. The logbook closes with a soft thud, another day documented, another small piece of Fort Worth's history preserved. You lean back in your chair, feeling the accumulated tiredness of the long day. Outside, the night continues its ancient patterns. Stars wheel overhead, nocturnal animals pursue their mysterious business. The wind whispers through the buildings, carrying scents and sounds from far away. But Fort Worth sleeps, protected, peaceful, exactly as it should be. You extinguish the lamp, darkness filling the room like gentle water. Your eyes adjust quickly, finding their way to the narrow cot where you'll spend the night. The mattress is thin but familiar, the blankets worn but clean. Simple comforts for a simple life. As you prepare for sleep, you listen to the night sounds of Fort Worth, the distant murmur of voices from the saloon, the soft shuffling of horses in the stable, the gentle creak of buildings settling. These sounds don't disturb, they comfort, they speak of a town at peace. Your badge lies on the bedside table, within easy reach, ready to be pinned on. Again, when morning comes, the tin star catches what little light filters through the window, a reminder of duty, of service, of the trust placed in you by the people of Fort Worth. Sleep comes gradually, peacefully. You drift off to the sound of a gentle wind through the buildings, the distant call of a night bird, the soft breathing of a town at rest. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new responsibilities, but tonight, all is quiet, all is calm. The stars continue their ancient dance overhead, keeping watch while you sleep. Fort Worth rests under their protection and yours. Another day in the life of a frontier sheriff draws to its close. Another night of peaceful dreams begins. In the morning, you'll wake to sunlight streaming through the window, to the sounds of Fort Worth stirring to life, to coffee brewing and horses snorting and the thousand small activities that mark the beginning of a new day. But now, in the gentle darkness, there's only rest, only peace, only the quiet satisfaction of duty done and community protected. The wind carries scents from the prairie, grass and wildflowers, the clean smell of open spaces, mixing with the more familiar odors of town, horses and leather, wood smoke and dust. The frontier and civilization blending in the cool night air. Your breathing slows, deepens, matching the rhythm of the sleeping town. You become part of Fort Worth's peaceful night, another element in the complex harmony of a community at rest. The sheriff sleeps, but Fort Worth remains under protection, watched over by the stars, guarded by the night. As consciousness fades, you're aware of the profound satisfaction that comes from a day well lived, from duties performed, from peace maintained. This is the true reward of frontier law enforcement, not glory or excitement, but the quiet knowledge that your presence makes a difference, that your vigilance allows others to sleep safely. The last thing you hear before sleep takes you completely as the distant sound of the creek, murmuring its eternal song, flowing past Fort Worth on its way to join larger streams, then rivers, then the vast Gulf of Mexico, connecting this small town to the larger world, part of the great network of water and land and sky that binds all things together. Fort Worth sleeps, the sheriff sleeps, all is well in this small corner of Texas. This brief moment in 1869, this peaceful night on the American frontier. Tomorrow will come, with its own challenges and satisfactions, but tonight belongs to rest, to dreams, to the gentle rhythms of a town at peace. The stars fade slowly as you drift deeper into sleep, their light becoming part of your dreams, mixing with memories of the day just past, of patrols walked, of duties discharged, of a community protected. Sleep comes completely now, peaceful and deep, the reward of honest work in service of others. And so ends another day in the life of a frontier sheriff, another chapter in the ongoing story of Fort Worth, another small victory in the endless struggle to maintain order and peace on the American frontier. The night keeps its own watch now, gentle and protective, until morning comes again. As Fort Worth settles into its deepest sleep, you rest secure in the knowledge that your work is good work, necessary work, the kind of service that builds communities and protects families and makes civilization possible even in the wildest places. The badge may be simple tin, but it represents something profound, the human commitment to order, to justice, to the protection of the innocent. Your dreams, when they come, are peaceful, filled with images of sunrise over the Texas plains, of cattle moving slowly across vast grasslands, of children playing safely in dusty streets, of families gathered around dinner tables, of all the small, precious moments that your vigilance helps preserve. The night wraps Fort Worth in its gentle embrace. The sheriff sleeps, the town rests, all is quiet, all is calm, all is exactly as it should be in this peaceful corner of the frontier, under the vast Texas sky, in the year 1869, when the West was still wild, but places like Fort Worth proved that civilization could take root anywhere, that peace was possible even on the edge of nowhere. Thank you for joining me tonight in Fort Worth, for walking the dusty streets with a frontier sheriff, for experiencing the quiet rhythms of a simpler time. May your own dreams be as peaceful as those of our sheriff, as gentle as the night wind across the Texas plains. Drift off now, and perhaps I'll see you again, in another quiet corner of sleepy history. The stars fade softly, as you close your eyes, and all is calm, all is peaceful, in the gentle darkness of a frontier night. Sleep well, until history calls us together again.